Wow, hi, my name's Al. I'm sorry the light is like kind of blinding, but this is what we're going with. My name's Al, and today I want to talk about a look back at history, at Pokemon history. A look back at the cloning glitches most infamous and documented in the Pokemon franchise, because I'm sure you know, and I'm sure you've seen videos in the past when you were a child and stuff of like, oh, here's how you can clone Pokemon, here's how you can duplicate. And it's been there since Gen 1, but it's been a variety of different things, and it's a funky thing. And of course in Scarlet and Violet we also had that with a pretty infamous Smeargle cloning method that now I believe is patched, but let's look back, okay? And I think it's gonna be a lot of fun because it was a lot of fun for me to research. A lot of this is coming from Bulbapedia. I think there are a number of other like wonky ways people could clone Pokemon in different things, but let's just go over the main ones for now because I wanted to look back on it, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Starting with Gen 1 and actually Gen 2 because I kind of want to lump them together. So seems as though when you think of Gen 1 and 2 cloning, you're gonna be looking at two main methods here. There was the trading method, and there was the box change method. So the trading method seems to be more associated with Gen 1, and the box change method with Gen 2, let's say. But the trade method in Gen 1, let's say, is gonna be just as you think it will be. It's involving trading, and it's involving interrupting trading while it's happening, and that's gonna cause issues. And I should say, like, don't take this video as like a way to try and attempt things. I think it's gonna be, a lot of this stuff has been like patched or like reworked, and you know, you might not be able to just go try this. So I wanna recommend it too, because some are dangerous, like this Gen 1 one, because it can corrupt save file data and whatnot. But no, how did this work? So the Game Link cables for the Game Boy couldn't simultaneously receive info. It couldn't send and receive data simultaneously. So it would go like one by one, I guess. So you send the one traded Pokemon data, and then somebody receives it, and then you do the other. And so because of that, if the process was interrupted, like purposefully or more commonly through like a damaged cable or like even just dust or something weird, then you might have a chance of things going a little wonky. So interrupting the trade after one Pokemon was sent and the other wasn't causes the first Pokemon to be present on both games and the second one to not be present on either. Oh no, essentially making two of the same Pokemon while making the other disappear. Fascinating stuff. Like I said, I think this one is a more dangerous one because it can definitely corrupt save file stuff, but let's look at the box change method. This is also something of early Pokemon where you had to save the game every time you change boxes in your PC storage, which I don't know, I think that's kind of funny, but obviously that's what the hardware was able to do. I mean, you know, working with that. So this allows for cloning because once again, the first data saved is the data in the storage system, and then it saves the player's party Pokemon data. So what could happen is that like in Gold and Silver, for example, we're gonna see Pokemon are deposited in the PC before switching the box, interrupting the saving process, which would mean turning off the power or resetting. At the right moment, ideally, see, we got it down to a science, ideally after the yes-no box disappears and before the A in saving appears in the dialog box, but after the box has appeared, it causes said Pokemon to be present in both the box and the player party's Pokemon. Awesome stuff. You can also, instead, like, unlike the trading, you can clone up to like 5 because we're doing party and box stuff and it's gonna be easier to just do more than one. That's great. You can also use that as a way to get all 3 starters in Gen 2. So you go through all that stuff in the beginning, and then you have Pokeballs, and then once you have Pokeballs, you can go catch a Pokemon, probably like a Pidgey or something on the early route. And then once you catch it, you're gonna have to deposit your Cyndaquil, for example, in this example, and you're gonna be able to then, as you can see, we're gonna be trying to save and then reset. Interrupt that thing. And then once you do, you're brought back, and because of the wonky saving stuff that has to do with timing and things, you are able to have that data of the PC Pokemon still in there. So Cyndaquil, even though you can now, on this back to the save, you can get Totodile and then have 2 starters, and then you can do it again for Chikorita. Very interesting stuff, I gotta say. I like this. It's interesting. Let's jump to Gen 3. So sadly, Gen 3 became a wall. And what I mean is, improvements were made to where they had cables receiving data simultaneously. They had auto-cancellation of trades if something goes wrong. They had a lack of saving between boxes. You could just go back and forth all the time. Easy, convenient. That meant that there wasn't many cloning to be happening in those previous methods that we just learned about. And that kind of is boring. But don't worry, Emerald has come to save cloning. So this is going to involve the battle tower in Pokemon Emerald for Gen 3. So basically, the battle tower has this interesting thing where I've seen players talk to the lady at the desk. Then when you're saving, when it's time to save, you kind of dip out of there. And we're gonna clone. So the link battle mode of the battle tower, it saved only the party, the bag of the player, and some miscellaneous data. And because of that, you're able to reset without saving at this point, and the game resumes in front of the lady with the party as it was when the NPC saved the game, and the PC as it was when the player manually saved the game. This allows for a number of cloned Pokemon as well as, you know, items if they're holding them. This is exciting. Look at this. We got one party Pokemon, we've got a bunch in the box, and we're gonna take those box Pokemon and put them in the party. Go over to the link battle, and she's gonna speak, and then you're going to continue. Would you like to save? Reset. Great. So what happens when you reset? You're right there near her, but then you're able to go to your PC box, and this player looks like was able to find their old Pokemon, now cloned. Interesting. Then we jump to Gen 4, who also decided to like repeat history in a way, because Pokemon invented the GTS, and when the GTS rolled out, it's a new feature, new stuff, but it went back to the past with a clone glitch that was possible and reminiscent of the first two games. So what I mean is that if you deposit a Pokemon in the GTS, the connection was interrupted at the right time, then it seems that you would be able to have the Pokemon in both the party of the player or the PC box, and in the GTS, which meant that the player could then just retrieve the GTS Pokemon and have that clone, I guess. Okay. But then in Platinum, they got smart and it was removed. But then trading became possible with players trading one DS system and another DS system, and then if you're able to turn it off at a certain time, once again, timing stuff, the Pokemon traded to the game that was not turned off will appear in both players as parties. But apparently this is another difficult glitch and can commonly corrupt save data, so it's another risky one, just like the first few we talked about, but very interesting stuff. Very interesting that that's possible again. I would also love to hear first-hand experience from people who did these at all or knew, but yeah, among other things. This is great. But then there was also more shenanigans with like the GTS being evaded, and DNS addresses are able to be brought in and manually specify so that you could potentially get some clone, you know, stuff like that. But then we could jump to Gen 6. And I should say that DNS stuff kind of lumped Gen 5 in as well. There aren't too many standout Gen 5 it looks like. But Gen 6 has once again a blast from the past with trading method cloning. Yeah, even though Pokemon made the jump to 3D, the jump into the future, we still reverted to the past, making sure to have another trading clone glitch like in Gen 1. This time, you need to break off the trade between two 3DS systems via like infrared connection, and if the timing is right, once again, this is down to like RNG and timing as well, you might be able to clone the first Pokemon, or you might have the trade be complete according to Bulbapedia, or even erased. So it seems like it's like spinning a roulette wheel. But no, even like videos I'd seen before of other people, you know, these old relic videos of people showing it off, it seemed very easy to be able to just make sure you do things at the right time. And the Pokemon on the other game so you got one game where you're trying to clone the Pokemon, and then you've got another game that receives and has trade fodder, and that fodder will be erased in a sense like it's replaced by the cloned Pokemon. So interesting things going on. It's interesting, it's wild. Just like all these. Then Gen 8 we get to jump to with curry cloning. So remember curry? Well, that was like our first picnic experience, our beta picnic feature in Gen 8, and allowed for some weird stuff to happen while in the curry camp. When you're making curry and stuff and you're in this Pokemon camp, sometimes other Pokemon come to you. They want to join or they want to do stuff. This involves actually your Pokemon rejoining you. So apparently the player encounters a wild Pokemon in camp after making curry, but like there's a chance that the Pokemon near the player, and this is like Pokemon in slots like 3, 4, and it also has to be Pokemon that are very like long and big, basically ones that have a long and big hitbox. So Pokemon this works with would be like Salamence, Easy, Flygon, Steelix, Galarian Weezing, Moltres, Giratina, Noivern, and Corviknight, but maybe others are possible with it. But those are some good examples. So for some reason, your Pokemon might act like a wild Pokemon and want to join your party. Of course, that's rejoining because it's yours, but you know, you can say yes and all that. Don't grab the item right away because you can clone the item with it, but I think you can't grab it initially if you want to do that. And what's also interesting is that like the Pokemon that you get, the clone, let's say, you know, its game of origin, the OT, the ID number, Pokeball, date caught, level caught, and location will all be altered to match the player's current status, and it'll receive the Curry Connoisseur mark, even though if it's already had another mark, or is otherwise not eligible to receive it. Very interesting. And of course, like I said, held item can be cloned if there is one, just don't remove it before receiving the Pokemon. So interesting. The wild Pokemon still chills in the camp, but then like once you leave the camp, everything kind of disappears, but you do have a clone, so that's fascinating. Man, curry stuff. And then Gen 9, we're already up here, and as I said, there's probably more other ones that I skipped over, little mini ones, but you can definitely tell me about them. I just want to hit these like major ones. So with Gen 9, we are hitting a major one with Smeargle. So this is one I actually did as well, and I've got some experience with it. Of course, I didn't record all of it once it was still possible, but I have remnants. Like, I remember doing it to get many apricorn balls. So you would have, I had my like shiny Torracat hold onto the ball, and then we would just be using Thief and everything to get tons of them. But let me explain more how this works. You have to have the DLC, or you had to have, because you need Smeargle. So Smeargle is the main guy for this, and if Smeargle is like really close to a tree, that's what you're gonna try and get him near. Players would just kind of, if they didn't have one near a tree, get those things to chase him down. They have to sketch the move Transform, which means you need a Ditto with Transform, and not the hidden ability, not the imposter ability. And you also have to make sure it's a fast Ditto, because you've got to, you know, do a move and then have it do Transform. It has to sketch it, and then you can swap out. But yeah, that's what we're gonna need. And then once it uses Transform, the player can run away from the battle, and sometimes, if you're lucky, like I said, RNG dependent, sometimes Smeargle becomes the clone of the Pokemon it transformed into. So that's cool. And it just chills in the overworld, and it's the same. You can encounter it, it's like your Pokemon, it's got the same moves and things, it's got the same held item as we just went through, all that. Most of the stuff stays the same, but info about where and how it was caught, and the info about who caught it can be overwritten. And having the wild Smeargle transform into certain battle-only forms, like terrestrial form Terapagos or hero form Palafin, the clone will be able to sustain these forms outside of battle when they otherwise wouldn't be able to until the clone is placed in a PC or the game is restarted. That's interesting. That sounds wild, yeah. Stellar form Terapagos and Ogerpon in its terrestrialized state cannot be cloned, sad, as Transform fails against those targets, but the player can still terrestrialize clones of Ogerpon and Terapagos to use said forms. Ooh. Interesting. It's possible to clone Pokemon obtained through the NPC trades in the BB Lee Club room, and since OT and ID data is overwritten upon capturing a clone, but ribbons and marks are copied, the partner ribbon is also able to be obtained for a Pokemon the game considers to be the player's, allowing any OT to be a Pokemon's title. The Pokemon home tracker value will also be copied if the original Pokemon had one. Clones made from this glitch cannot be used there in those cases. All fascinating stuff. As I said, I believe this one has been patched, but that's just a trip down memory lane. This whole video was a trip down memory lane. It was meant to be fun, and I hope you had as much fun as I did kind of looking into it and everything and making the video. But if you did enjoy it, definitely don't forget to like, subscribe for more content in the future, and like I said, comment down below your own experiences, things I might have missed, because I'm sure I'm missing the niche things, but I wanted to cover these major ones. But yeah, thank you again for watching and everything, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye!